What if the very quality everyone praised you for is the same one quietly draining your strength? Since you were a kid, you heard the script. Stay humble, don't make noise, downplay the win. Keep your eyes lowered even when you've climbed farther than anyone in the room. They sold you the idea that modesty is maturity, that dimming your light is noble, that a real leader makes himself small so others feel big. They weren't being honest with you. In circles where power is the currency, humility is often camouflage for people who don't want to compete, and never show off gets twisted into erase yourself. That isn't virtue, it's self-sabotage. If you refuse to own your presence, you disappear from the minds of people who trade in perception, respect, and strategic fear. Machiavelli said it in his own brutal way. When forced to choose, it's safer to be feared than loved. The overly humble man manages to be neither. He becomes forgettable. History doesn't reward softness. Think of the builders who didn't whisper their plans. They moved with precision, executed, and let the echo of their results do the talking. They didn't thank lucky stars or magical timing. They stood in the storm and called it strategy. Meanwhile, how many talented people achieved quietly and got buried just as quietly? The crowd can clap for false modesty all day, but the crowd doesn't crown kings, and the crowd doesn't write legacy. Here's the modern trap. You win, then you immediately apologize for it. You run a clean play, then insist it was nothing. You get the promotion, then tell everyone you just got lucky. You call that politeness. It isn't. It's a muzzle. You water down your edge so no one feels threatened, and slowly your blade becomes a spoon. On social media, it even gets rewarded. Likes for humble captions, applause for self-erasure, praise for acting small. And while you shrink to keep the room comfortable, a colder, louder man steps into the space you surrendered. Let's clear up the confusion. Silence and humility are not the same thing. Silence can be a weapon. Silence can be strategy, listening, reading the room, speaking only when it shifts the ground. Humility, as it's performed today, is different. It's self-deletion. The quiet person who radiates pressure is dangerous. The performatively modest person who keeps belittling himself to be relatable becomes disposable. We've mislabeled everything. Assertiveness gets called arrogance. Precision gets called ego. Certainty gets pathologized. But discomfort isn't the enemy. Comfort is cheap. Respect is expensive. Power is never handed to the man who politely waits. It gravitates to the one who walks in and makes it clear without apology. I belong here. Picture two commanders on a field. One has ice in his gaze, a plan in his pocket, and a voice that doesn't wobble. He says what's going to happen and why. He doesn't thank fate, he doesn't hedge, and he doesn't invite a committee to vote on confidence. The other speaks of luck and teamwork and humility and victory. His soldiers admire him, but they don't fear disobedience. When the chaos starts, one army moves like a single organism. The other stalls while looking for consensus. That's the difference. You don't keep order by lowering your crown. Every empire reaches a hinge moment, softened to make others comfortable, or sharpened to protect what you've built. The humble man gives ground. The dominant man gives warning. Machiavelli warned that people judge more by what they see than what is true. Translation: perception is reality in public life. If you act under your actual power level, people don't grade you on your potential. They mark you down to the performance you chose. And once they do, you'll need more than new words to correct it. You'll need consequences. This is why rulers rarely knelt without purpose. If they bowed, it was prelude to an execution. Bow too often, and they forget you were ever standing. You weren't born to apologize for talent, to dim your instincts, or to split your throne with men who never bled for it. Yet that's the script many follow. Win, then explain it away. Speak, then backpedal to keep others comfortable. Lead, then refuse to call it leadership. Each move chips at your authority. Humility isn't harmless. It's corrosive when misused. It teaches a lion to bleat, and after a while, even the lion forgets he ever had teeth. Ask the hard questions. Who trained you to believe small is safe? Who profits when you hide your force? That advice wasn't about your growth. It was about their comfort. They say, stay grounded, but what they mean is, don't rise so high I have to look up. That's the treason hidden in performative humility. It pretends to be moral, but functionally, it's a leash. Humans aren't drawn to weakness. We're drawn to what we can't fully predict, control, or categorize. Radical humility strips away that mystery. It makes you digestible, predictable, safe. And nothing safe is ever truly safe in a world ruled by perception. The lion isn't admired for his gentleness. The general isn't followed for his self-doubt. The ruler isn't remembered because he stepped back. They're remembered because when everyone else trembled, they stepped forward and didn't apologize for the weight of the crown. You don't need to shout to dominate a room, but you must take up space in it. The modern ritual of false modesty trains you to shrink. Nod when you should correct, smile when you should command, deflect when you should define. It teaches you to be forgettable, and then it asks you to be proud of being overlooked. Power isn't earned by vanishing. It's earned through undeniable presence. Machiavelli wrote that a prince is respected when he is both a true friend and a true enemy. When people know exactly what he stands for and what he opposes. Humility muddies that message. It makes you vague, harmless, easy to test. The humble man is the one who speaks, and the room doesn't stop. He enters, and no one looks up. He acts, and it's forgotten. Now picture another man. He moves like thunder right before the storm, silent, but heavy with force. He doesn't need to be loud. He needs to be undeniable. That's real dominance, not arrogance, but certainty. Not apology, but self-possession. You don't owe anyone an apology for being sharper, faster, or hungrier. You owe them a warning. I'm not here to entertain your comfort. Once humility becomes your identity, it morphs into sabotage. You start doubting your instincts, handing away credit, fearing recognition as if it's sin. And worst of all, you train people to believe you're replaceable. Because when a man erases himself, others take it as permission to erase him too. Imagine this, a high-stakes negotiation. A table full of executives talking, pitching, competing for air. One man, calm, razor-focused, sits back. He doesn't interrupt. He listens. Then, when he finally speaks, the table shifts. Every word lands. He doesn't humble himself. He names his price, defines the line, and watches who flinches. That man isn't arrogant. He's anchored, and his quiet authority seals the deal. You are not in this world to dim your brilliance so others can glow. You're not here to fold your ambition into something small enough to fit someone else's comfort zone. You are here to become undeniable. Yet so many men go through life with a fire they were taught to hide. They wonder why no one respects them. Respect begins with refusal to shrink, refusal to mute, refusal to perform humility like it's a costume. Because the moment you start acting humble to be accepted, you begin betraying your own potential. You think softness will make people like you more. But the world doesn't reward soft, it rewards strong. It rewards what it fears or what it needs. If you are neither feared nor needed, you're invisible. So make them remember. Walk into rooms like your name is already engraved on the walls. Speak like your silence costs something. Move like hesitation is betrayal. You are not here to beg for permission. You're here to claim space without bowing, blinking, or diluting yourself to be palatable. They'll call you arrogant. Let them. They'll call you difficult. Let them. They'll say you've changed. Good. Because you finally stopped apologizing for who you've always been. At some point, every man who's been trained to be humble realizes humility never protected him, it concealed him. You're not losing because you're unskilled. You're losing because you've been invisible. And the cruel truth is, you were taught to believe invisibility was virtue. Keep your head down, they said. Let your work speak for itself. But the truth is, history doesn't remember quiet workers. It remembers the ones who moved while everyone else waited for permission. Machiavelli reminded us that fortune is a woman, and she favors the bold, not the polite. You conquer her with force, not courtesy. Because outcomes don't go to the most deserving. They go to the most deliberate. Every system, corporate, social, political, rewards the man who takes up space. Humility, as it's sold to you, is hesitation dressed as holiness. Look around. You'll see it everywhere. The humble artist whose genius collects dust because he never promotes his work. The humble leader who keeps getting overlooked because he refuses to name his ambition. The humble warrior who downplays his victories until even his enemies stop fearing him. Slowly, these men disappear, not physically, but from the imagination of others. Because invisibility, even when chosen, is still death to influence. You must understand the difference between humility and restraint. Restraint is control. It's knowing when to act, when to speak, and when to wait. Humility, as most people practice it, is erasure. The restrained man can dominate without words. The humble man can't dominate at all. Think of the wolf. When he waits in silence, it's not humility, it's calculation. He knows exactly when to bare his teeth, but if he hides those teeth long enough, he forgets how to bite. And when that happens, he's not a wolf anymore. He's a lamb wearing a costume. Now picture a throne room. Marble floors, cold air, the sound of whispers. A man stands before the king. He's loyal, quiet, brilliant, humble. Years of service, never asked for more, never demanded his worth. And yet, he's invisible. The king doesn't even look twice. Then another man enters, less experienced, but confident. He speaks with certainty. He makes eye contact. He states his vision clearly, and the entire room shifts. Why? Because presence isn't given, it's declared. That's what humility steals from you. Your declaration. Your ability to make yourself seen, heard, remembered. Power isn't just what you do. It's what people believe you can do. And when you consistently act beneath your worth, people start to believe that version of you. They'll assume your silence means consent, your modesty means doubt, and your patience means weakness. And they will treat you accordingly. This is why false humility isn't just unwise. It's dangerous. Every interaction, every alliance, every room you enter is a measurement. If you don't define your own value, others will assign it for you, and they'll always round it down. So, if you speak with gravity. If you move with intention. If you win, own it, don't dilute it. Because false humility won't make people love you more. It only makes them forget you faster. They will take your silence and call it permission. They will let you fade into the background and then thank you for staying out of their way. And when you finally decide to reclaim what you've given away, you'll realize power doesn't return to the man who abandoned it. It migrates. It finds someone bolder, someone unapologetic. So ask yourself now, are you being humble or are you being erased? Are you being noble or are you being neutralized? Because in this world, power bends only for the man who demands to be seen. You weren't born to play small. You weren't shaped by hardship just to keep your voice soft. You weren't given potential so you could hide it every time someone else feels insecure. No empire in history was built by a man pretending to be less than he was. And no legend was remembered for keeping his brilliance private. Here's a truth most people never say out loud. The world doesn't reward quiet genius. It rewards visible conviction. In a world ruled by perception, the unseen man might as well not exist. This is the final cruelty of humility. It convinces brilliant men to bury themselves alive under politeness and fear of being called arrogant. It takes greatness and hides it behind false virtue. You know the pattern. You work hard, you deliver, you make things happen, and then someone else, louder and bolder, steps forward to take the credit. And you let it happen. Because you think being humble makes you honorable. You tell yourself they'll notice one day. But they won't. They'll just learn that you're safe to overlook. Power never forgets presence. Power never forgets noise. What it forgets instantly is silence. Machiavelli warned that capable men who refuse honor vanish, not because they lacked skill, but because they refuse to demand recognition. The crown doesn't go to the most deserving. It goes to the most deliberate. Think about it. Every boardroom, every company, every court works the same way. The one who speaks clearly about his value controls the conversation. The one who downplays himself becomes a supporting actor in his own story. Humility is walking into battle without armor and calling it virtue. You can have all the skill in the world, but if you refuse to assert it, it's as if it doesn't exist. You're training for a war you'll never fight. They told you wanting recognition is ego, that stepping forward is arrogance, that asking for more is greed. No living in truth is not arrogance. You are powerful, you are capable, and if you pretend otherwise, you betray that truth. You trade your potential for their comfort. What do you get in return? A few polite compliments, a pat on the back, hollow praise from people who'll forget your name the moment a louder man walks in. Don't mistake praise for position, they'll say. We admire your humility, while handing the opportunity to someone else, someone less skilled, but more visible. Because recognition isn't just vanity, it's leverage. It's how movement happens. If you refuse to claim it, you'll stay stuck while others pass you by. So you have to kill the habit of shrinking. Bury the instinct that says, don't draw attention. Silence the voice whispering, don't seem full of yourself. That voice isn't protecting you, it's burying you. And if you don't silence it, the world will bury your ambition for you. You've seen this before. The humble employee who trains everyone else but never gets promoted. The humble artist whose ideas build someone else's empire. The humble man who keeps saying, it's fine, when it's not. That's not patience, that's surrender. That's self-erasure in real time. And while you play nice, they're watching. They watch you carry the weight, do the work, and swallow your credit with a smile. They call you dependable, reliable, loyal. Words that sound like praise, but are really labels for the replaceable. No one fears the man who always agrees. No one remembers the man who never claims his work. No one follows the man who never says, this is mine. Some men rise faster not because they're better, but because they stop hiding. They speak first. They take credit. They say their worth out loud, not from ego, but from understanding that the world gives more to those who demand it. It's not fair. It's not polite, but it's true. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince for men chasing fairness. He wrote it for men who wanted results, so stop asking for fairness. Ask for leverage. Ask for clarity. Ask for the room, and then take it. There is no shame in saying, I built this. No guilt in claiming, I led that. No arrogance in declaring, I matter. Because if you don't say it, no one else will. And if you don't show it, they'll assume it's not there. You have a choice. Be liked for being humble, or respected for being undeniable. You can't be both. A lion that hides his teeth isn't safer, he's closer to slaughter. The man who hides his greatness, thinking it protects him, learns too late that humility is not a shield. It's a sheath, covering the blade that was meant to be drawn. They taught you that silence was strength, that modesty was protection. But strength that never strikes is invisible. The world doesn't care what you could be. It only reacts to what you declare. A man who walks like he's second place becomes it. A man who speaks as if unsure convinces everyone he is. A man who keeps underplaying his value ensures no one will ever overestimate him. This isn't a call to arrogance. It's a call to precision. The difference between confidence and humility is not tone, it's intent. Confidence says, I am capable. Humility whispers, I hope you notice. Which one do you think power listens to? The world doesn't reward restraint mistaken for weakness. It rewards presence. The kind of presence that fills the room before you speak, that doesn't need validation to stand tall, that doesn't flinch when someone questions it. That presence can't be faked. It's built through conviction, and that conviction begins the moment you decide to stop apologizing for your strength. You think humility will earn you peace, but peace isn't given to the quiet man. It's given to the man no one dares to disturb. Real peace doesn't come from submission. It comes from presence. The kind of presence that changes the air when you walk in, that commands attention without needing to ask for it. That presence is built on conviction. Conviction that your voice matters, that your strength isn't a threat, it's direction, that your ambition isn't ego, it's energy, and that your victories don't need apology, they need ownership. Humility tells you to wait for validation, but legacy doesn't wait. It's carved by those who step forward. History is written by those who didn't ask for permission. If you want to be remembered, you have to move first. You weren't meant to be quiet. You weren't meant to be agreeable. You weren't meant to be remembered fondly and forgotten easily. You were meant to leave a mark so sharp it survives you. So the next time someone tells you to stay humble, ask yourself what they really mean. Are they trying to protect you or keep you small enough that you never outgrow them? Because a king who kneels too long forgets the weight of his own crown, and when he forgets, someone else will pick it up. Stand up, speak up, stop hiding. The world will never make space for a man too humble to claim it. If you felt overlooked, unseen, or dismissed, you already know this truth deep down. Being small doesn't keep you safe, it keeps you forgotten. Being humble doesn't make you noble, it makes you invisible. They told you to be patient, to wait your turn, to let your work speak for itself. But your work doesn't speak. You do. And if you don't, someone else will speak over you, rewrite your story, and wear your crown. Look around. The world doesn't reward fairness, it rewards force. It bends toward those who step forward first and speak with clarity. The humble wait to be invited. The powerful walk in as if they belong. You've been taught to see visibility as vanity, but visibility is survival. Because in the game of influence, what isn't seen doesn't exist. You cannot inspire anyone from the shadows. You cannot lead if no one knows you're there. And yes, they'll misjudge you. They'll call you arrogant, proud, difficult. But understand, being feared, misunderstood, or envied means you're being seen. It means your presence is finally being felt. When you choose humility over presence, someone else wins what was meant for you. Every time you stay silent to seem polite, someone louder speaks your destiny into existence. Every time you hide your fire, the world forgets you ever burned. So make them remember. Speak with gravity. Move with certainty. Take up space unapologetically. Because no one will hand you power. You have to claim it. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be undeniable. There comes a moment in every man's life when the mirror starts asking harder questions. Not, who are you? But, how much longer will you hide? That's the turning point. The moment when you either stay small to make others comfortable or rise into the power that was always yours. Because the truth is brutal. Humility, as it's been taught to you, is not virtue, it's sedation. It's a strategy invented by the weak to keep the capable from realizing their strength. You were told humility makes you noble, that lowering your head shows grace, that staying quiet is maturity. But that's the oldest lie in the book. Humility doesn't make you noble, it makes you neutral. And in a world ruled by perception, neutrality is invisibility. The people who told you to stay humble weren't protecting you. They were protecting themselves from the storm that would come if you ever stopped apologizing for existing. Being humble feels safe. It keeps you out of conflict. It keeps you likable. But what it really does is keep you out of power. It convinces you to bury your edge, to tame your instincts, to talk about your brilliance in a whisper. You think it earns you respect, but all it earns you is permission to be forgotten. You weren't born to be invisible. You were born to command gravity. Real self-command begins the moment you stop lowering your tone so fragile egos can breathe. When you stop disguising your greatness as modesty. When you stop waiting for permission to move like a man who belongs. That's the day you become undeniable. Ask yourself, seriously, why do you still hesitate before you speak? Why do you apologize for having sharp instincts? Why do you feel guilty for being better prepared, more focused, more dangerous than others? Who taught you that standing tall was arrogance? Trace it. You'll find it came not from strength, but from fear. Fear disguised as morality. You are not here to protect others from your power. You are here to wield it, to refine it, to make it impossible to ignore. Because every time you hide behind humility, you surrender ground that will never return. Every time you shrink to seem likable, you teach others that your silence is your ceiling. You call it patience. You call it maturity. But what it really is surrender. The men who rise aren't always the most talented, they're the most unapologetic. They don't wait for the world to be fair, they make it bend. They don't wait to be invited, they walk through doors because they've already decided they belong inside. They don't flinch when others call them arrogant. They know the difference between arrogance and clarity. Arrogance needs attention. Clarity commands it. Machiavelli understood this long before us. He wrote that the prince who hesitates not only loses opportunity, but loses the image of power itself. An image is everything. A man who walks like he's second becomes it. A man who speaks as if unsure convinces the world he is, and a man who minimizes his worth guarantees no one else will ever overestimate it. This is not arrogance, it's precision. Precision in tone, in movement, in belief. When you hesitate to claim your worth, the world doesn't wait. It replaces you. When you bow too often, they forget you were ever standing. The man who doubts himself teaches others to doubt him too. Humility is the sheath that covers the blade meant to rule. It hides your sharpness until it dulls. And by the time you remember what you once were, the throne has already been filled by someone louder, bolder, less deserving, but unapologetic. You think silence will earn you peace. But peace doesn't belong to the quiet. It belongs to the unshakable. The man no one dares to challenge. The one whose calm isn't weakness but certainty. That kind of peace isn't born from submission, it's born from presence. Presence isn't about being loud. It's about being unmistakable. It's the stillness of a man who knows his value before anyone else names it. It's the weight in the room when you finally stop asking for approval. Conviction builds that presence. Conviction that your voice matters. That your ambition isn't ego, it's direction. That your strength isn't arrogance, it's alignment. That your victories don't require apology, they require ownership. Humility tells you to wait for validation, but legacy doesn't wait. Legacy belongs to those who act while others overthink. You cannot inspire from the shadows. You cannot lead from the background. The world follows the man who steps forward when everyone else hesitates. And yes, they'll misjudge you. They'll call you proud, cold, intimidating, even cruel. Let them. The cost of presence is discomfort for them, not you. The moment people begin to whisper your name, you've already won the game. They're still afraid to play. Every time you choose humility over assertion, someone else wins what was meant for you. Every time you stay quiet to seem polite, someone louder claims your destiny. Every time you dim your fire to protect fragile hearts, the world forgets you ever burned. So stop waiting to be noticed. Stop waiting for permission. Power doesn't knock. Power enters. Speak with gravity. Move with certainty. Occupy space unapologetically, because the world will never hand power to the man who refuses to show he can carry it. A lion that hides his teeth isn't safe, he's starving. A king who kneels too long forgets the weight of his crown. And a man who hides his brilliance thinking it's virtue dies watching lesser men lead with his light. So walk as though the ground itself remembers your name. Speak as though silence costs you everything. Move as though hesitation is treason, because it is. The world doesn't reward fairness, it rewards clarity. It bends toward the man who defines himself and never apologizes for it. The humble wait to be seen. The powerful make themselves impossible to ignore. You've spent too long being agreeable, hoping good work would speak for itself. But merit without voice is noise in an empty room. The world doesn't remember the almost great. It remembers the undeniable. So rise. Step forward. Speak first. Move like the throne is already yours. Let them misunderstand you. Let them whisper. Because history isn't written by the polite. It's written by the relentless. And in the end, the world divides into two kinds of men. Those who wait for permission and those who walk in as if the door was already theirs. Be the second. Because the throne was never meant for the humble. It was meant for the man who finally decides to stop bowing.